In the medieval world, justice didn't just apply to people. In some cases, it extended to animals, livestock, birds, even rodents. Across Europe, courts sentenced creatures to death by hanging, burning, or mutilation, not as metaphors, but as actual formal legal acts. These were not isolated oddities. They were documented, sanctioned, and executed in full view of society. Why did medieval communities try animals like humans? What did it mean for the law, morality, and belief in divine order? Let's dive into the strangest trials you've never heard of. Cases where pigs, roosters, bulls, and even rats faced the full force of medieval justice. Our first case takes us to 1386 in the town of Falaise, Normandy. A tragedy had struck. A young child was attacked and killed by a sow. In modern times, this would be an unfortunate accident handled by animal control. But in medieval France, it sparked a legal proceeding that would go down in history. The sow was arrested and jailed. Yes, literally confined as a criminal. Court documents confirmed that she was formally charged with homicide. And the trial was not a parody. The animal was clothed in human garments and brought to a public square to face justice. A secular judge presided over the court. Witnesses testified, the facts were reviewed, and a verdict was delivered: guilty. The punishment was grim. First, the sow was mutilated. Then she was hanged by the town's official executioner as a crowd gathered to watch. This wasn't just spectacle. To the people of Falaise, it was a necessary moral ritual. In the medieval worldview, even animals could violate divine order. While thinkers like Thomas Aquinas argued that animals lacked moral agency, the common belief was different. A violent beast could disrupt cosmic harmony and had to be purged. The execution was meant not only to avenge the child's death, but to restore spiritual balance. And to the crowd in the square, justice had been served. Fast forward to 1474 in the Swiss city of Basel. This time, the accused was a rooster. Its crime? It laid an egg. Biologically strange, but not impossible. In rare cases, genetic anomalies can result in such events. But for the people of Basel, this was not science. It was sorcery. Medieval folklore warned of roosters laying eggs under the devil's influence. These so-called cock's eggs were believed to hatch into basilisks, mythical creatures that could kill with a glance or a breath. So when the egg was discovered, fear swept through the town. Authorities seized the rooster and placed it on trial, charged with an unnatural act and suspected of demonic activity. The bird was brought before a court that included both magistrates and clergy. There was no defense. The sentence: death by fire. The rooster was burned alive in a public square alongside the egg. To the people of Basel, this was not cruelty. It was protection, an act of spiritual defense against the forces of evil. This case illustrates how deeply religion, superstition, and law were entangled in the medieval mind. A single strange egg was all it took to turn a bird into an enemy of God. The line between human and animal guilt was astonishingly thin. Between the 13th and 16th centuries, bulls and oxen were occasionally charged with violent crimes, especially when they caused human fatalities. When a bull escaped its handler and trampled or gored someone to death, it wasn't just destroyed as a danger, it was tried as a criminal. These trials were documented in regions like France, Flanders, and the Holy Roman Empire. The animals were captured and placed in confinement, sometimes chained in secure pens. and then brought before local courts. Based on witness accounts or circumstantial evidence, verdicts were issued. The guilty bulls were sentenced to death, often by hanging. Of course, hanging a bull isn't easy. In many cases, execution was symbolic, either by strangulation or mock suspension meant to resemble human punishment. Why go through such theatrics? Because punishment had to be seen. Justice wasn't just about deterrence, it was a moral performance. To leave the bull alive after it had killed a person was to allow disorder to fester in the heart of the community. The most bizarre and intellectually fascinating of all medieval animal trials happened in 1522 in Autun, France. The accused? Rats. They had destroyed large portions of the town's barley crops, and under the church's jurisdiction, the rats were summoned to court. A town official, known as a summoner, publicly called upon the animals to appear. When they didn't show up, the court prepared to proceed with sentencing until something unexpected happened. Bartholomew Chasseneuil, a rising star in French law, stepped forward to defend the rats. And he didn't do it for satire. He did it using real legal tactics rooted in canon law. Chasseneuil argued that the summons was invalid. It hadn't been delivered to all the rats across the diocese, and he claimed the rats were absent due to legitimate threats to their safety, namely cats. Surprisingly, the judge accepted his procedural objections and delayed sentencing. The trial eventually fizzled out, and the rats escaped condemnation. Executing a pig, burning a rooster, defending rats in court. And yet, in medieval Europe, these trials were treated with utmost seriousness. Why? Because justice wasn't just about law. It was about restoring spiritual order. In a world shaped by divine wrath and cosmic balance, every act of violence, even by an animal, was a threat to the soul of the community. Punishment was public, symbolic, and often religious. The crowd didn't gather for entertainment. They gathered for reassurance that chaos had been confronted and moral order reaffirmed. These animal trials reflect the intense moral anxiety of the time. They reveal a world where the boundaries between the human, the divine, and the natural were blurred, and maybe they serve as a warning. Today, we like to believe we've moved beyond such thinking, but future generations may look back on our own justice systems, our superstitions, and our rituals, and wonder how we ever thought they made sense. What do you think? Which modern-day practices will seem just as strange 500 years from now? Let us know in the comments. And remember, history isn't always rational, but it always reflects what a society fears most.